So, welcome back to Leading Edge. What if they gave a primary and nobody came? Well, actually, nobody came because at the 11th hour, Ohio decided not to hold its presidential primary, at least not now. Dr. Sam Nelson, University of Toledo, agreed some time ago to be here this week to break down the Ohio primary, and he is here via Skype because Illinois and Florida and Arizona all voted this week. The winner, Biden, Biden, and Biden. So, Dr. Nelson, without Ohioans even having a peep of influence, this state, Ohio, which chooses presidents after all, is the field set?
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like Biden will win the nomination. There's really no math for Sanders to come back and win.
And I know it's not statistically locked down. You don't see that path. Dr. Nelson, on what did the Democratic race, which pivoted so sharply just a couple of weeks ago, on what did Democratic voters base their decision, which became so quickly so one-sided?
Yeah, it was really interesting. We started with, 24 candidates at the beginning, yeah. And then in about 2 days, the race really consolidated to a two-person race, and then Biden ran away with it. I think you saw something that's a pretty normal thing for a political party to do, both Democrats and Republicans, in a lot of years, where the race kind of shapes up and you see consolidation around a front runner. We didn't see that in 2016 with Donald Trump. It looked like that might happen, but the Republicans never consolidated in the usual way. But here the Democrats did something that's pretty typical party behavior.
And many people saw what happened this past Tuesday. They saw it. They said it's going to happen, and it did. And yet Senator Sanders hung around. He hung around this long. We believed what? Why? Did he think that he had a comeback coming? Or was it something else?
I think probably not, thinking that there was going to be a comeback. These were not good states for him even in 2016. But if he wants influence on the platform, if he wants influence on maybe the legislative priorities of the Democratic Party, if he wants to see some of his chief policy goals become part of the campaign, maybe staying in for a while is his best way to influence the direction that the Democratic Party is going, not just in this campaign, but maybe over the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. This is Dr. Sam Nelson, a political science professor at University of Toledo. We know Bernie Sanders is an issues guy. He's about the issues. Biden, it seems, more of an image guy, as in, hey, folks, let's return class and prestige to the position of president. But for all of that, Doctor, will this be a coronavirus election?
It's obviously going to have a gigantic impact in two different ways. One is there's what's President Trump and his administration, how well do they respond to this crisis? How effective are they as crisis managers? How effective are they keeping people safe? They're going to be judged on that. Any incumbent president would be judged in this situation on his performance. But also, the coronavirus is hitting the economy really hard. Yeah. And the economy is a gigantic factor in whether an incumbent is going to be reelected. If we're looking at steep economic declines over the next 2 quarters, that's really a headwind that any president would have a very hard time running for re-election in that environment.
I'm sure some Trump supporters are saying, not fair, he had nothing to do with this virus. By the same token, we all heard him for the past 3 years say, hey, how's your 401k? How are your retirement funds? He wrote it up. I want to talk about this crisis management because it is something we want, Sam Nelson. We want and we expect in our elected leadership. And whether or not the president has anything to do with creating a crisis, what they're judged on, you tell me, is how it is handled. And it's interesting, President George W. Bush gave us a couple of examples of crisis management with very different outcomes, didn't he?
Yeah, after 9/11, I think that he did a very good job of looking presidential, of calming people down, making them feel safe, looking like they kind of had an idea of how they were going to respond. But then, a number of years later, in his second term, when Hurricane Katrina happened, it was really the opposite effect. And that may have been a cumulative effect of criticism of President Bush over 5 or 6 years and a lot of other problems and things that had accrued. But you know, the response to his disaster management in Katrina was that it simply was ineffective and was a symbol of his administration more broadly. And, you know, that was something that John McCain, as the nominee for the Republicans in that next election, really had to work against.
All right, Dr. Sam Nelson, my guest, we need to take a break. I want to take a look forward now. This is going to be one of the weirdest looking campaigns. I'm trying to get my head around what it might even look like. Let's do that right after this quick break on Leading Edge. All right, so folks, we know it. It's going to be Biden, Trump, Trump, Biden. Here we go into the fall. But Dr. Sam Nelson, political science professor, no campaign rallies, maybe for months, for the foreseeable future, maybe a couple of debates down the line with no live audiences. Will 2020 be a campaign waged largely through TV and internet ads, or what?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, campaigns have been running a lot of TV for a long time, and both sides are going to have a lot of money in this campaign. If Mike Bloomberg comes through with some of his promises, there's going to be a lot of money spent on the Democratic side. Obviously, the president has a lot of money behind his campaign, so it'll be a lot of television. But of course, that's actually what we see most years.
You know, sure, the president's in a tough position. We've got this national emergency going on. But I'm looking at Senator Biden here. He isn't on the inside of managing this COVID-19 virus. Is he just left then to critique and possibly second guess the administration's handling? He's in kind of a tough position here too, isn't he?
Well, it won't necessarily look good for him if he's just coming across as sour grapes, but he could do something more like shadow president, where he brings in prominent people from the Obama administration that he has relationships with, and they start talking about, here's some ideas for solutions, or here's some things that we think we could do. We're going to chip in, and we're going to work in states with Democratic governors, maybe where he's got some ties. And, you know, you saw Obama do that a little bit during the financial crisis before he was sworn in and inaugurated, already kind of taking a leadership role without having the levers of power.
While Ohio was neutered as far as the 2020 presidential primary so far, it still figures to be a key state in the fall, always is. Conventional wisdom says that following an 8-point win in 2016 in Ohio, President Trump would have the inside track to hold on to the Buckeye State and its electoral votes. Can Biden carry Ohio? And give me, if you think he can, what path he would have to take to get him there.
Well, he'd really have to go back and get those voters that Hillary Clinton lost in places like the Mahoning River Valley and Wood County, some places that were traditionally strongly Democratic in presidential elections, especially that northeast quadrant of the state. Clinton really lost a lot of support there. Obama lost support there in 2012. And so Biden has to reach out there, but he might be the right messenger for that area. His roots, his working class roots in Scranton and things like that, that might be the kind of messenger that can bring some of those voters back.
He needs to come in and lock arms with Sherrod Brown, who seems to have the secret to winning the state of Ohio. My thanks to University of Toledo political science professor Dr. Sam Nelson, keeping us on the leading edge of a presidential race that goes on when the rest of life as we know it presses pause. Good to see you, Doctor. I want to thank my guest today, but especially you for watching. Hunker down, stay well, take care of each other. Keep it tuned here. I'm Jerry Anderson. Have a great week ahead. See you next week on Leading Edge.